So I want to talk about the policies of Kamala Harris, and I'm going to start out with the bad policies. I've collected like 30 different policy positions. So I'm going to start out with the policies I don't agree with, and then I'm going to go with the policies I do agree with. I'm going to say this right off the bat, that Kamala Harris has a lot of progressive planks. She's a super progressive, even though there are some concerns that I have about her, but for the bulk of her planks of her platform are very progressive. Okay, so her problems, she's wrong on prisons and prison labor. She's thrown more black men in prison in California as DA and AG, the Attorney General, than everybody before her. She's wrong on mandatory public education attendance. She had criminalized truancy in California, so she criminalized Huckleberry Finn's. You ain't going to civilize me. So he's going to go out and play hooky and actually have real-life experiences instead of just sitting in a room all day being crammed with a bunch of information as if that's education. She pursued state legislation that threatened to prosecute parents of habitually truant elementary school kids. So she's criminalizing Huckleberry Finns and their parents. Kamala Harris secured wrongful convictions through departmental misconduct, typical prosecutor bullshit. She's wrong on ICE. ICE, fuck ICE, abolish the shit out of ICE. ICE is the birthplace of America's Third Reich. And she said that she'd only examine ICE. She would re-examine ICE. And then she said potentially overhaul ICE. And then I'll come back on that a little bit, talk a little bit more about that. Kamala Harris also supports a ban on assault weapons and on the sale of high-capacity magazines. I'm a pro-Second Amendment progressive, so I believe that the Second Amendment is important for freedom, it's important for self-defense, and also there's a dozen other progressive issues that need to be solved, many of which contribute to the gun violence: child abuse, corporal punishment, poverty, homelessness, oppressive public schools, militarized society, cops getting away with murder. Kamala Harris is wrong on the war on drugs. She was a prosecutor. She was anti-marijuana until 2018. So I'm almost 100% positive she's weak on defending a person's right to their own bodies in respect to drugs. And then on Palestine, I got a question mark on Palestine, so I'll come back to Palestine. Now, ICE, she wants to re-examine ICE, potentially overhaul ICE, but she's not talking about abolish ICE. So AOC is taking all that heat by saying that ICE needs to be abolished. I don't remember hearing all this talk about ICE and the atrocities that ICE. I don't remember ICE ever being, so much in the news as it is today. Is ICE brand new, or is it they're just using brand new tactics and that's why we're listening? And ICE, just the name of it, right? It's like Viper. It's like ICE. Oh, here comes the ICE squad. So when she served as San Francisco's district attorney, she supported a city policy that turned undocumented immigrant minors over to ICE. If they were arrested, all they had to do is be accused of a crime, and then they were turned over to ICE. But if they committed a felony, she also turned them into ICE. That makes sense. You commit a felony, get turned into ICE. If you were just arrested, I hate the idea that if you're accused of what? You were driving, with a broken taillight and whether or not that's true or not. So if they arrest you, right, you're innocent until proven guilty. But if you're an undocumented minor, then she turned them over to ICE. So ICE needs to be overhauled. Fuck ICE. We need to abolish the shit out of ICE. So when she's only talking about re-examining it and potentially overhauling it, then it doesn't come close to AOC's position. When it comes to, so she's wrong on prisons and prison labor. Slavery is outlawed in Colorado, and it should be outlawed in all the United States. Slavery is bullshit. So Kamala Harris oversaw a department that argued that the state of California couldn't release some prisoners because it would reduce the number of prison laborers. The United States need Norway's prison system yesterday. We need Norway's prison system yesterday. So Kamala Harris, just one more time, she's wrong on prisons and prison labor. She's wrong on mandatory public education attendance. She's wrong on wrongful convictions through departmental misconduct. She's wrong on ICE. She's wrong on guns. She's wrong on the war on drugs. Now, on Palestine, I want to look a little bit more into her position on Palestine, but she's a slam dunk for Israel. So, she's a strong supporter of the Israeli government's close ties to the United States, calling the bond between the two countries unbreakable. Even if they genocide, even if in 2015 they killed thousands of Palestinians, including hundreds of children, no matter what they do, right, our bond is going to be unbreakable. If my friend and I, right, we're friends and we're walking around town and then he's talking about, going to genocide a bunch of Palestinians, we ain't friends no more. I'm not going to stand up and say, oh, well, we're friends, so I'm going to allow them to commit crime. No, you genocide, we are not friends anymore. She told the 2017 gathering of the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee that she would do everything in my power to ensure broad and bipartisan support for Israel's security and right to self-defense. So, does she support Palestine's right to security and self-defense? It just seems like she's a slam dunk on Israel, whereas her comments about Palestine. So, I want to know more about Kamala Harris's position on Palestine. Now, let's see how much time we got. Plenty of time, okay? So 30 minutes total for how much this one video could be, to do it in one take. So now let's talk about the good things about Kamala Harris, okay? Kamala Harris agrees with Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan. She also did not pursue the death penalty for a man who had killed a California police officer. She got a bunch of pressure to kill that man, but she didn't. His guilt wasn't clear, and so on police, she almost seems like the anti-Donald. She wants them to have body cameras, and if the guilt is not clear, right, whereas Donald thinks the police cannot do any wrong, Kamala actually stood up to the pressure to kill a man that may have been innocent or justified. Kamala Harris is in favor of the legalization of recreational marijuana. Kamala Harris is for free college for all. Kamala Harris is right on Yemen. She's right on the Iran nuclear deal. She's right on the Afghanistan war. She's right on Syria. I believe she's right on Syria. It says she voted against a Senate resolution condemning Trump's withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria. So, Trump wanted to withdraw U.S. troops from Syria. The Senate resolution condemned his withdrawal, and then she condemned that resolution, which means she's in favor of Trump's withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria. When it comes to Yemen, she opposed U.S. support for the Saudi-led war in Yemen because Congress never approved the American involvement in the conflict. She's right on the Iran nuclear deal. She opposes Trump's withdrawal on Afghanistan war. She wants a political solution to the war in the U.S. military involvement in the country. She's right when it comes to bail reform. She introduced a bill to encourage states to reform or replace their bail system. She's in favor of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. She wants body cameras for the police, which should be turned on their entire shift. If they're in uniform, then that body camera is running. She's great on taxes. She's anti-Trump tax cuts. She criticized the GOP tax cuts 2017 as a middle-class tax hike to line the pockets of already wealthy corporations in the 1%. That's good rhetoric, too. She's in favor of middle-class tax cuts. She wants to give a $3,000 refundable tax credit to individuals making $50,000 or less. She wants to give a $6,000 credit to couples making $100,000 or less. She would get rid of some of the cuts in Trump's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act to help pay for it. She's even in favor of a Green New Deal. She's using the right words. It might not be AOC's Green New Deal, but she signed on to the Green New Deal resolution in February 2019. And the goal of the Green New Deal is to transition the United States to 100% clean and renewable energy in 10 years and to stimulate the economy with millions of new jobs and an expanded social safety net. Green's the color of nature, and a New Deal has been a long time coming. When was America's last New Deal? The 1930s with FDR, maybe in the 60s with FDR? Well, that's 50 years ago. New Deal's been in the works for at least 50 years. And I prefer my New Deal to be green. Kamala Harris opposes Trump's border wall, which is the opposite of Hillary, who supported a border wall. She's called Trump's border wall a medieval vanity project. She's in favor of DACA, So the Dreamers, the deferred action for childhood arrivals, that means the young people who came to the U.S. illegally as children get to stay here and have a pathway to citizenship. On immigration, she introduced a 2018 Access to Counsel Act, which would guarantee detained migrants access to an attorney. Kamala Harris co-sponsored the Reunited Act. She sponsored the Reunite Act, which helps to reunify separated migrant families. She's introduced legislation to increase oversight at immigrant detention centers and to end the construction of new facilities. So even though she only questions ICE, there's a lot of good things when it comes to immigration here. As Attorney General, Kamala Harris prioritized the prosecution of transnational gangs and weapons and drugs and human traffickers. She does not accept any corporate PAC money. She no longer takes any donations from corporate political PAC, political action committees. And as of April 2018, she doesn't take any corporate PAC money. So this is kind of a new development, but she's evolving, just like on marijuana. Before 2018, she talked about medical marijuana, but never recreational marijuana. Now she's saying recreational marijuana should be legalized, which is completely correct. Nearly 65% of Kamala Harris's campaign funding between 2015 and 2018 came from individual donors who gave more than $200, according to Open Secrets, a project of the Center for Responsive Politics, and just under 5% has come from corporate PACs. So that was between 2015 and 2018. She hasn't been taking much money from corporate PACs, 5% of which she got, from 2015 to 2018. But now she doesn't accept a penny. She doesn't accept one dime from corporate PACs. She's in favor of choice. Kamala Harris voted against a bill in the Senate that would ban abortions after 20 weeks of pregnancy. That's 5 months. The people that are, we need balance. So people that say all abortions are wrong, and people that say all abortions are right up to 9 months is wrong. You need a line of demarcation. If you're for abortion up to 9 months of pregnancy, are you for abortion when the fetus is 18 months? How about 27 months? But she's pro-choice, so she's, correct on that. Kamala Harris grilled Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh on his position on abortion during his 2018 confirmation hearing. As Attorney General, she investigated whether ExxonMobil lied about its research on climate change. She's got a 100% lifetime score based on her voting record from the League of Conservation Voters, which I believe is some environmental group. She's in favor of gay marriage. She defended the rights of the LGBTQ. She did not defend California's law that prohibited gay marriage when she was the state's attorney general. So she did pick which laws she was going to enforce and which ones she wasn't going to enforce, and she didn't enforce the LGBTQ laws. So good for her. Kamala Harris supported transgender individuals' right to use the bathroom of their choice during her time as Attorney General. Good, but she requested that the government not move forward with providing a prison inmate a gender reassignment surgery, which is fine. As DA, she created a hate crimes unit to prosecute crimes against LGBTQ youth, which is good. She's also against the death penalty, and even though I agree with capital punishment for, those few heinous crimes, those who are opposed to the death penalty aren't bad. That's a very respectable, progressive position. So Kamala Harris supports a moratorium on the death penalty under federal law, calling executions immoral, discriminatory, ineffective, and a gross misuse of taxpayer dollars. But Kamala had appealed a federal judge's ruling that said California's death penalty was unconstitutional. So she says she's against. It seems like she could go either way with the death penalty, because when the a federal judge says that it was unconstitutional, she appealed that decision. Kamala Harris is against lynching. She co-sponsored a federal anti-lynching bill passed the Senate 2018, which is great. She's against the TPP. Kamala Harris opposed a Trans-Pacific Partnership with which Trump had withdrew the U.S. from in 2017, arguing that the deal wasn't transparent and would have hurt California's environmental protection efforts. She opposes Trump's trade war with China and his tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from the EU, Canada, and Mexico. She's accused China of engaging in unfair industrial policies, outright theft of American intellectual property. She won a $1.1 billion settlement against a for-profit college chain for their predatory and illegal practices, and she extracted $25 billion from Wall Street to compensate California homeowners following the financial crisis. So she's in favor of the legalization of marijuana. She's for Medicare for all. She's for free college for all. She's right on Yemen, right on the Iran nuclear deal, right on the Afghanistan war. She's right on Syria, bail reform, Civil Rights Act of 64. When it comes to middle-class tax cuts, the Green New Deal, she opposes Trump's border wall. She's in favor of DACA, the Dreamers. She wants to make sure immigrants have some right to counsel. She wants the families of immigrants to come back together. She's fighting against these transnational gangsters. She doesn't accept corporate PAC money. She's pro-choice. She's investigated ExxonMobil. She's been good with the environment. She defends gay folks and the LGBTQ folks. She's against the death penalty. She's against lynching. She's against the TPP. She opposes Trump's trade war with China, even though she does recognize China has engaged in unfair industrial policies and theft of American intellectual property. She won a $1.1 billion settlement from a for-profit college chain for the predatory and illegal practices, and she won $25 billion from Wall Street to compensate California homeowners following the financial crisis. So she got $25 billion from Wall Street. They got punished, right? Seemed like we give, the federal government gave them, $700 billion, so we paid all those bankers for wrecking the country, whereas she actually got money from the Wall Street folks who actually, about blew up our economy and blew up the world's economy. So, when it comes to, there's a couple of comments I wanted to make. The marijuana, before 2018, she was opposed to the legalization of marijuana, so she's evolved on marijuana, and that's a better position. But she didn't support the legalization of recreational use, which, tells me that she's in favor of Richard Nixon's war on drugs. She's in favor of Richard Nixon's war on drugs. And so that's awful. Her being in favor of the war on drugs is awful. She says now she wants to clear nonviolent marijuana-related charges from individuals' records. She opposes the recreational legalization before 2018. In 2015, she called for an end to the federal ban on medical marijuana, but not recreation. So she's evolved on recreation, but it's, she's still in favor of the war on drugs except for marijuana, which, that's all I really care about is the marijuana for myself, but ultimately we have a right to our own body, and there's one example with the war on drugs. You got a lot of elderly people who actually have real pain who need their drugs, but because of the war on drugs, there's all this crackdown on opioids to where they can't get the medicine that they need. So Bernie Sanders wants free college. Bernie Sanders wants Medicare for all. With Kamala Harris, she agrees with Bernie Sanders' Medicare for all. So Kamala Harris is going to eliminate private insurers and then virtually eliminate co-pays and deductibles. You're sick, you walk into the hospital under Kamala Harris, you will get taken care of. The Bernie Sanders Free College for All Act waives tuition for all students attending public colleges and universities whose families make $125,000 a year or less. She supports expanding some early childhood education programs and implementing national universal pre-education. So, that's pretty much everything right there. So those are all the, good things, lots of progressive issues when it comes to the war on drugs. She's not correct when it comes to prisons and prison labor, throwing more black men into prison in California, mandatory public education attendance, the wrongful convictions through corruption. When it comes to ICE, she just wants to re-examine ICE. and then on guns and on the war on drugs. Now, she's also wrong on those two, too. So, on Palestine, all right, I think I already mentioned Palestine, but essentially, where is she at on Palestine? I got a big question mark on that, because if someone asks you what you think about Israel and Palestine, and you don't even mention Palestine, well, do you think they exist? Do you think that they matter? So I suspect she could be wrong on Palestine, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So there you go. There's a whole slate of Kamala Harris policy positions. Kamala Harris is a very impressive politician. So you should watch out for Kamala Harris. If she did win, I support Kamala 80 to 90%. So there's about 10% of the things that I, strongly question or I'm totally against. So there you go. It's Kamala Harris and a whole shit ton of policy positions that she has. Peace!